Hello and welcome back to Relatively Crafty, a knitting podcast. This is episode 10. If you are new to my podcast, thank you for checking me out and giving me a chance. If you are a returning viewer, thank you for coming back. I really appreciate it. I am Cristi. You can find me on Ravelry as Cristi-Lael, and on Instagram as just Cristi-Lael without the dash. I do have a Relatively Crafty Podcast group in Ravelry. You can find that by just searching Relatively Crafty in the Groups tab, and I would love for you to come and check us out. It's still a small group, but I am hoping to do some giveaways and some cals soon. So please come join and chat with us. I'd like it to become a real thing. This podcast group. So, if you are new, then if you are new to the podcast, then let me introduce myself a little bit. I am Cristi, as I said. I've been knitting for, I've been a knitter with a capital K for about 10 years. Socks are my favorite thing to knit, especially self-striping socks. But I do knit all kinds of other things. I am a new transport to Colorado from sunny Southern California. I was born and raised in Southern California, and my husband got laid off from his job in March of last year, and we couldn't find a job local, so we started looking elsewhere, and he found kind of the perfect job here in the Denver area of Colorado. And so we moved up here in late September. Well, I was here in late September. He came 3 weeks earlier, so he was here at the beginning of September. And we have just been loving it. It's perfect. We have 2 daughters, Tatum and Delaney. Tatum is 12 and Delaney is 9. And I knit for them only a little bit. I always feel a little bit ashamed when I watch these podcasters who have children that are about the same age as mine or younger, and they're showing all the wonderful things that they make for their kids. And I really haven't knit very much for my kids. I've made a couple of things. I've made them each a sweater or two, and there's been a couple of hats and some mitts and whatnot. I even made Tatum a couple of pairs of socks when she was really little. But really, honestly, I knit mostly for myself. I get excited about knitting things, and I get excited about having the things that I've knit, and with the exception of my mom and my Aunt Kathy in Texas, there isn't a whole lot of people in my family who really want hand-knitted items. My uncle, I've made him a couple of pairs of socks, and he's very into Disney, and so I made him a Mickey dishcloth once, and he wears the socks, and he appreciated the dishcloth. I don't know that he actually uses it, but I think that he's put it up in his kitchen. His kitchen is all red and black and white Mickey stuff. And then I knit my dad a balaclava once at his request, but it wasn't thin enough. He wanted it to wear underneath his motorcycle helmet for when he went riding, and it was, I think the pattern was called for like DK or worsted weight yarn, and it was too thick to wear underneath his helmet. So, and plus he wanted it out of black, and we all know that knitting out of black yarn is not really the most comfortable or enjoyable thing to do, and so he opted to buy one instead, and that saved me from having to knit one in fingering weight yarn in black. And, I've knit a couple of things for Ron, but still not very many. There's not a whole lot of knitwear that he especially wants either. So it's basically me. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't want to make it sound like my family is not receptive to hand knit items. They do occasionally ask me for things. My brother did just ask me to knit him a new sock head hat at Christmas time, because the one that I made him before unfortunately got critter-et, and so it's holy, and so he did ask me to make him another one of those. So I will be doing that, but generally, and I do have some friends who have asked for things over the years. Or I have made them things just because I thought that it would be something that they would enjoy, and they've all been receptive to those as well. but generally I knit mostly for myself. I am one of those knitters. I refuse to call myself a selfish knitter because selfish is such a negative word, and I don't think that it's negative, that this is how I choose to enjoy my hobby. But this is how I choose to enjoy my hobby. So yeah. um, but anyway, so yeah, so I am a new Coloradan, and I've been a knitter for a long time, and yeah, I'm a 30-something-year-old knitter. I just barely. I'm hanging on to that 30-something. My birthday is at the beginning of May, and I turned 40 this year, so not really keen on that, but I guess it could be worse. I remember being a teenager and thinking that 45 was the perfect age to be because you were old enough that people respected your opinion and came to you for advice, but weren't so old that people thought that you were, clueless. So I will say that as I get closer to 45, I kind of I'm not so keen on getting to that age, but yeah. So I turned 40. It's kind of hitting me because, a month ago, I was turning 40 next year, and now I am turning 40 this year, and even though there's only been a month's difference, it still hit me pretty hard. So anyway, I'm totally getting off subject. This is a knitting podcast, so let's talk about knitting. Let me go ahead and start with what I am wearing. I've decided I'm going to try to, as much as I can, pull out some of my older knitted stuff and show them to you and kind of talk to you about them, and hopefully kind of share a little bit of my experience knitting these items. This is, well, probably until I finished my Rustique cardigan that I just finished last week, this was my favorite knitted item. I'm not including socks in that. I'm talking about, like, torso covering items. This is, and it's funny that it would be because this was designed by the same designer of the Rustique. This is the Basic Black cardigan by Glenna C. And I've named this project Basic Black, now in full color, because I obviously went with the colorful edition of this sweater. And I knit this out of Malintosh DK, which is one of my favorite yarns for sweater knitting. And the colors are, let's see, this really beautiful orange is Napoli, which is one of my favorite oranges. And then this blue is Nico Blue. Yeah, and this blue is Nico Blue. And this green here, this kind of olivey green, is Grove. And then this multicolored variegated is Mansfield Garden Party. And that's what I planned this whole sweater around. And I thought, you know what? The shades of the blue, green, and orange are almost exactly the same shades that are in the Mansfield Garden Party. So why don't I do a stripy sweater? And I made this back in 2012. And I don't remember seeing a whole lot of stripy sweaters back then, so I really thought I was cutting edge at the time. And so I found a pattern that was, I knew I wanted it to be very basic, so I found a pattern that fit that, it was even basic in the name, and I set to plan to knit it. I made some changes. I believe that the original pattern was written to knit in pieces, and at the time I didn't ever want to knit anything in pieces ever again. I also had just learned how to steek things, and so I opted, instead of knitting this in pieces, I knit it in the round and then steeked it. I started with the sleeves. I knit those first, and I knew I was going to sew those in. So those were knit separately, and then I used that as my gauge swatch as well, which is a tip that I would always say. If you if you're not one who likes to make gauge swatches, then you can always start by knitting the sleeve, especially if they're bottom up sleeves, and then you can have that be your gauge swatch, and yet not have to rip it all out and start again. You can just continue on with the sleeve, assuming you get gauge, of course. If you don't get gauge, then you need to make your adjustments and whatever. But you could even, depending on how off your gauge is, you could even kind of flub it a bit and just change needle sizes as you're continuing on with the sleeve, and see if that'll help you get gauge, and then you don't even have to rip it out to start again. But that's digressing again. Anyway, so this is a bottom-up sweater. So I cast on the appropriate amount of stitches, plus I think I did 5 stitches for the steek, so an extra 5 stitches. And it starts, hold it up here, it starts with ribbing, of course, which I did in the Napoli, and so I had all the ribbing, and then I had 5 stitches in stockinette here in the center where the button band is now, but at the time it was just the thing. But at the time it was just the steek. I'll try to post a picture here of it when I was knitting it, and I knit up, and then there's waist shaping involved. So I continued with the waist shaping just as you would, only I think I had like, I don't know, 2 or 3 stitches in between the waist shaping. So I put like a stitch marker here at the center of the side, where a seam would have been on both sides, and then I just did the decreases and the increases on either side of that stitch marker. And then when it came to the arm shaping, I did the same thing, where I cast on, gosh, it's been such a long time. I believe that I cast on a couple of extra stitches that weren't connected. So there was like a hole when I got to the arm, and then that was the steek, and so that's the bit that I cut. And then when I got up to the top of the sleeve, I bound off those stitches. So there was like this loose, or not connected on top and bottom piece of fabric that I could cut for the sleeves. I'm almost positive that's what I did. And then of course I finished up the shoulders, and the top of the shoulders have been seamed. Maybe, I think I might have just, yeah, I thought I did a 3 needle bind off, but as I'm feeling, I think it was a proper seam. So I bound off the shoulders and sewed those up, and then I cut the steeks for the sleeves and sewed the arms in. And you can see I did a pretty good job of matching up my stripes, although they're not exactly right. I think I did the stripes, I think it was like, I did it by rows. So I just continued, so I just matched the sleeves to the body. You can see my cuffs I roll up. So I started with the Mansfield Garden Party and then went to the blue, and I did the same thing on the body here. And then after I had sewn in the sleeves, I did the steeking for the neck, and you can see there's my edge to my steek. And steeking is not scary in any way. I mean, it is before you've done it, but once you've done it, you kind of realize that you didn't really have a whole lot to be afraid of. It's not that hard, and it's a nice thing if you don't like to have to purl back on a cardigan. This was before I learned to knit backwards, so the only option that I had besides steeking was to knit it in the pieces and then knit back and forth, or knit forward and purl back. And as I had said before, my tension is not even when I purl. It's not even to my knitting. So yeah, I did the steeks, and and then I picked up the stitches for the button band, and I was getting really close to running out of the Napoli. And so I think I even did the button band like maybe a row shorter, or it was just a very small button band, and originally it called for 5 buttons. And so I did that, and I liked the sweater. I liked it. I was proud of what I had done. I was proud of the changes that I had made and how well they had worked out. But the problem that I ended up running into, and this is something that I discussed a little bit with my Rustique, I did not have enough buttons, and the sweater was just slightly on the snug side. Like it had about it had a little bit of negative ease instead of positive ease, and so because I carry my weight in my belly area, the buttons, or the spaces in between the buttons would gape, and I hated that. And so I always felt like I needed to tug it out every time I wore it, so people didn't see me and go, oh well, look at she's so fat she doesn't even fit into her sweater. So anyway, I ended up just setting it aside. I also didn't really care for the length of sleeves because it's originally supposed to be worn like this, and I thought, you know what, they're not the right length. They're a little bit too long, yet they're a little bit too short, and I every time I would try to munch them up like that, it didn't work out right, and so I was not really pleased with the sleeves, and I didn't like how I was going to have to constantly tug at my sweater, and so I set it aside, and it sat for a long time, and I would pull it out every once in a while and go, maybe I can get away with this, and before I'd leave the house I'd tug on it a whole lot, and I just hated that. So in the beginning of 2015, I made this in March of 2012. In the beginning of 2015, I found somebody who had an extra skein of the Napoli, which I can't find anymore, which is too bad because I would love to have a whole sweater out of this orange. But I don't even think she had it for D-Stash, but I contacted her and I said, I would really love to be able to fix this sweater, but I need an extra skein. Would you be willing to sell me your skein? And she was really nice, and so she did, and so she sent it to me. It took me a while before I got the gumption to do it, but I basically took out the entire button band. I maybe not even took out the entire. I may have just taken out like the bind off edge and then continued on, because as we've discussed before, one of the things that I hate the most is picking up stitches for a button band. So I think I probably took out the bind off and then ripped back to where the buttonholes were, that buttonhole row, and then started from there. And I think I doubled the width of the button band, and I don't know if you can see, I added buttons. So originally it called for 5 buttons, and I put on 9 buttons, which are very close together now, as you can see, but they don't gape. And adding it's just basically added an inch to the overall width of the sweater, and now it fits just right. And so I wear it a lot now. Well, I haven't been wearing it very much this winter because it's been too cold for a shorter sleeve, or a 3/4 sleeve sweater, and so instead I've been wearing heavier sweaters. But today it's going to be almost 60 degrees, and so I think I'm going to go ahead and wear it out tonight to the knit shop. But yeah, I really like it now. I roll up the sleeves, which is perfect. They don't get in the way anymore, and yeah, I just really like the sweater. I also, I know if you can see from the original button band, I also added a bit of a shawl collar kind of thing with short rows, and I didn't do it as deep as I should have. But I didn't. I was like, I don't want to run out of yarn, though I shouldn't have worried about it because I had plenty left over. This is what I had left over. It's about 150 yards. But yeah, it's not a very deep shawl collar, and it kept flipping up, and so I've actually tacked it down, so it's actually sewed down. You can't lift it up, but yeah, I'm really happy with this sweater, and I like it, and it's one of the reasons why I've got so much more Tosh, DK, and vintage in my stash, because I just, I knit this sweater 5 years ago now, and while it hasn't gotten worn as much as I really wish it had been able to be worn, it still looks really good, and yeah. So anyway, there you have it. That is a very long explanation of what I did with this sweater. So let's now move on to FOs, and I have a couple, like 3 FOs to show you this week. So the first FOs I have are my Zach socks, so named because of the colorway. This is Fireweeds Dye Works in the Zach colorway, and it's very bright and cheerful, and I love them. I knit them. You saw them last week in my whips. I knit them toe up using a Turkish cast on. I did an afterthought heel, well, a forethought heel, because I put in a piece of waste yarn, and then ended with Judy's surprisingly stretchy bind off, and then I did the afterthought heel after that. And if you recognize this yarn, it's because this is what I used as my model sock for my Turkish cast on, afterthought heel, and Kitchener tutorial videos that I posted over the past couple of weeks. So yeah, I'm really pleased with how they came out. I love these bright yarns. I love the fact that this is older stash that I've had for a long time, and I was able to use it up. I've kind of taken it upon myself. I don't know if I've talked about this before, and if I have, I apologize. But I've kind of decided that 2017 is a year where I knit up some old stash. My Rustique sweater was the oldest stash that I had. I had that yarn since 2009, and I've decided to kind of go through and knit up some of the stuff that I've had in my cedar chest, which is right here, for years and years and years, and I've taken out and I've pet and I've admired and I've planned and schemed and dreamed about making into projects, but never done. And so that is what I am doing. Now I'm not putting myself on a yarn ban or a yarn diet. I don't buy enough yarn to really need to do that. My acquisitions are small comparatively. And I'm not refusing to allow myself to knit with newer yarn either, but I am encouraging myself. I think that's the word, encouraging myself, because I've almost so unconsciously forbidden myself from knitting so much of this yarn, waiting until the perfect project came around. With a lot of my sweater quantities, waiting until I was thin enough to be able to make the sweater that was going to last forever and ever and ever, and because I was going to be thin and svelte and it was going to be perfect, instead of enjoying the sweater now, which is what I should be doing. So anyway, I have finished these socks, and I am enjoying knitting up some of my older stash. And then my next FO, it's going to be kind of hard to show you. I might be able to actually wear it, but I knit a hood. I knit the Through the Woods hoodie. Through the Woods hood. Through the Woods. I don't even think it's called Through the Woods hood. I think it's just called Through the Woods. And it is designed by Kalura Hudson. And guys, this is a paid-for pattern, but I would definitely recommend paying for this pattern. Honestly, I shouldn't say that, because I recommend paying for most every pattern. But this pattern especially impressed me because it's a 14-page pattern, and there is information going from how to knit a gauge swatch with photo tutorials all the way to how to block it properly. There's a lot of information, and I think it would be really great for a fairly new knitter. Anyway, so here it is. I haven't blocked it yet, so it's not quite as spacious around the face as the picture in the on the pattern page, but I love it. I just think it's adorable. It's these great cables on the side, and I even like that it's got kind of like this elfish tip to it. I thought, you know what, this is going to be great for those days when it's cold outside and the wind is blowing. You know, it kind of covers up your face without, and those of you who wear glasses in the cold climates can probably identify with this. When you wear a cowl that covers up your face like this, and you breathe, your glasses fog up, which is really annoying. So this will still give me some facial coverage, but won't fog up my glasses. So yeah, so I just knit myself a hood. Probably doesn't fit exactly right either because I have a bun in the back of my head, and that keeps the hood back. But yeah, I really enjoyed knitting this, and I knit this out of Claudia hand painted Chunky. I think that was it, in the Earth Dot colorway. I had 4 skeins, and I always loved the colorway because of the speckles, and I still love it. I just think these speckles are amazing. A lot of people who knit this knit it out of solid yarn or tonal. It looks really good that way, but I think it looks good as well with these speckles. And then I just had some of these purple buttons in my stash that I used for the button band. But what's funny is last night I wanted to get an FO shot. And so I asked my youngest daughter, Delaney, to try it on for me just so I could get a photo of it. Ron was late home from work and it was already starting to get dark, and so I just snapped a real quick shot of Delaney wearing the hood, and she goes, "Oh, Mom, it fits me really good. Maybe I should have it." So she's already made an attempt to steal it from me. I expect that she might continue to do that, especially on those really cold days. So I may end up having to make another one or just hiding it from her. Little bit discussion about the yarn. As I said, this is Claudia hand paint in Chunky. As much as I enjoy the squishiness of it, because it is very squishy, and as much as I love the way it knit up in this, I will say that it's loosely spun, and so it's kind of splitty, which is kind of annoying, and it makes it hard to weave in the ends properly because, well, not that it makes it hard to weave it in properly, but it unravels at the end, and so it doesn't look as neat after you've woven the ends in. So that is kind of a little bit of a complaint of mine. I don't know that I would get it again, not in this base, but I'm not opposed to getting Claudia hand paints ever again. And then I ended up having like 3/4 of a skein left over, a little bit more than that. So I thought that I would just knit up a simple pair of fingerless mitts for one of my kids. For Tatum, I originally intended these, but I didn't cast on enough stitches. I cast on 24 stitches, and I should have done more because they're too tight for her. I mean, she can put them on, but she says they're too snug. Delaney says that they're not too snug, so they may end up going to her, or I may just put them in a basket for future gift giving, if I need a gift really quickly, because it's quality yarn and they'd be great for a smaller kid. So there's that, and that is the last of my FOs. That was 3. I was trying to remember if I forgot something. So let's go ahead. I will say I didn't knit any hexaflats this week. I guess I got more burned out than I thought last week with the snowball fight and knitting, I think at 23 or something like that in the entirety of last week, and 21 of them last weekend. So I didn't have any desire to knit them this week, and so I didn't push myself. but I do expect to start back up with that in the week coming. I also didn't manage to put any of the pieces on to my blanket. I had hoped to do that, but I got sidetracked with that hood. And so I ended up knitting that instead. But hopefully I will start putting pieces onto my, hopefully I will start putting hexaflats onto my blanket here pretty soon. So now let's go ahead and move on to whips, works in progress. I have just a couple of those. First I have my Magic and Moonshine socks. If you recall from last week, these were the socks that I was attempting to knit on 9-inch circulars. And if you're observant in any way, you will notice that this is not a 9-inch circular. After I tried to do it for another couple of inches, I just admitted the fact that I hated that. I didn't like doing it. I didn't want to do it anymore. And I was noticing that my gauge was really loose with the 9-inch circulars. And so I decided, life is too short to knit something that you hate. And so I transferred onto Magic Loop, and things have been much happier. I'm a Magic Looper. I just accept the fact that I'm a Magic Looper, and yeah. I'm not saying I will never ever try 9-inch circs again, but definitely not anytime in the near future. So I have this one, and this one is all done except for the heel. You may not be able to see, I used almost the exact same color green for the heel. It fell right in between this orange and blue stripe right here. And then with this other second sock, I have my heel waist yarn right here. And I have just started the ribbing for the cuff. I had hoped to get both of these finished by today, but as I said, the hood kind of took precedence. It was what I was intrigued by and what I wanted to knit, and I'm definitely a mood knitter, so I just do what feels good when it comes to knitting. And I probably, I knit these fingerless gloves yesterday, and they were quick knits, don't get me wrong, but if I hadn't knit these, I probably would have had both these socks done. So, I can't explain why I knit the way I knit, but I do. So I'm still trying to decide what I want to do with the heel. I normally just knit it out of the same stripy sock yarn, but I'm not sure if I want to try to grab one of my minis and do it with a solid color, especially because the heel has fallen in between the orange and the blue stripe. And so I generally try to do that with a solid heel. We'll see. I'll go through my minis bucket after I finish filming this and see if there's anything that catches my fancy. But I am enjoying these. Magic and Moonshine is a small indie dyer. She's another personal friend of mine on Ravelry, and she's a really awesome person. So yeah, I appreciate her work and have been enjoying knitting up her yarn. This is the only other skein I have of hers. I've knit up her stuff before, but this is all that I have left, and so I might have to rectify that here pretty soon. And speaking of indie dyers, something that I've been thinking about doing, I kind of like your input on it. I've been thinking about doing maybe once a month or once every other month doing like an indie dyer spotlight and kind of talking about the yarn that they have and what I've worked with. I obviously would do indie dyers that I'm familiar with, indie dyers that I've worked with their yarns so they can speak from experience. But yeah, just kind of telling about what they have and what their inspiration is and how they got into knitting and how they got into dyeing and and yeah, I've contacted one dyer about it, and she's excited about it. She's probably one of the dyers I've knit the most of, and I absolutely love her yarn and her dyeing process, or her colorways rather. I don't know about her process, but I've contacted her and she's up for it. So I'm hoping to maybe do that in February or March. She's also offered to have a skein as a giveaway, so I'm excited to be able to not only tell you about how much I enjoy her yarns, but also be able to share a skein with you guys. So keep an eye out for that. I'm excited about this. I'm hoping that this is something that I can continue to do throughout the year, and really kind of share some of these great indie dyers that aren't massive, so they're not getting picked up by everybody, but they are still really talented ladies and gentlemen, who dye wonderful yarns. And so this obviously will also mean that I will need to support more indie dyers on my own, so that I can have some experience with their yarn. And I'm excited to be able to do that as well, because that is one of the other knitting goals that I have for 2017, is to support more indie dyeing. Because as much as I love indie dyeing, and as much as I ooh and ah over their yarns, I end up missing out an awful lot. Just simply because I haven't had a history of buying a whole lot of yarn, and so I really want to be able to take a small amount of money each month for my own fun money, or money from destashing yarn and stuff like that, and put that back into supporting indie dyers. So that is my plan. So keep that in mind. I know I've just gone off subject yet again, and I apologize. I'm sorry. My brain's a little fried today, apparently. But I was talking about whips, and I have one more whip to show you, and that is my Twilling Gate by Laura Ayler. And if you recall from last week, I am knitting this as part of the winter camp. Well, I'm knitting it as part of winter camp because this Laura Ayler is one of the featured dyers, and so if you knit this, if you knit one of her patterns, you get extra bonus points. And also because if you knit something that is over, I think it's 750 yards, it becomes a Black Diamond event, and you get a massive amount of extra bonus points. But also because I am trying to knit 12 sweaters this year, and so this would be sweater number 2. So anyway, I worked really hard before I got into the hood. Or actually, no, it was after I got into the hood. I put the hood aside so that I could at least get this to the point where it looked like a sweater, because if you recall from last week, it just looked like a blue blob. But I finally joined the fronts and taken the sleeves off, put them on waist stitches, or doggone it. But I finally joined the fronts and then put the sleeves onto waist yarn, so it looks like a sweater now. Yay! There you go. It's rolling here. That is the front. And this is a Barbara Walker. It follows Barbara Walker's construction with the it's seamless set-in sleeves, and it was an interesting construction. And I actually wasn't paying close enough attention. I'm not the type of person that sits and reads through a whole pattern before I get started. I kind of just start knitting, and then I read the section as I go. So I wasn't paying close enough attention, and I ended up goofing up. I was supposed to go a certain amount of distance before I started the increases at the back and at the front, right at the armholes, and I didn't pay attention to that, and so I kind of had to jerry-rig it a little bit as I went on, because I didn't want to tear back, because I'm lazy. So anyway, so I have the beginnings of a sweater. This is a short sleeve pullover, so so I'm actually quite a bit further than it may look, because I don't really have to add much to the sleeves. I think it's just basically picking up the underarm stitches and then knitting a bit of ribbing here. I don't think that there's much length that's added here. So I'm hoping maybe I'll be able to get this finished this weekend, or at least most of the body finished this weekend. I only started out with 4 skeins of the blue, and I would say I'm just shy of halfway through the second skein. So I've used almost a skein and a half, and so I'm really hoping that there will be enough of the blue to finish the body. I do have, if you recall, I have a full skein and then this, I don't know, maybe 30-gram ball of the gray, which I will use for all the ribbing and for the front kangaroo pocket if I need to. But I am hoping to be able to do the kangaroo pocket in the blue if I can. And yeah, that's what I've got going on with that. Before I get into the new yarns that I've acquired this week, I wanted to kind of talk a little bit about some future knitting plans that I have. I've been thinking a lot about what I want to knit next and what yarns I want to knit with, and as I mentioned earlier, I'm trying to knit with older yarns, so I've been kind of trying to make my plans revolve around some of those older yarns. I've also wanted to build up some of my knitting skills. There's some techniques that have come out in recent years that I've not attempted, just simply because I haven't gotten around to it, and so I kind of want to take the opportunity to do that as well this year. So with that in mind, I want to say that over the next couple of weeks, you should see these projects coming onto the needles, and I do need a little bit of advice on some of them. I'll detail that when I get to it. One of the projects that you should see me cast on here pretty soon is the bauble cowl. If you recall, when I got this yarn back a couple of months ago, I mentioned that I wanted to make the alpaca cowl for Rhinebeck, but I'd gotten my patterns mixed up. I'd always appreciated the bauble hat by Donna Smith, and I had assumed that the alpaca cowl for Rhinebeck was also designed by Donna Smith, but I found out, because I knew it was designed by Deb Huculo, but I hadn't realized that Deb wasn't the one who designed the bauble hat. So I didn't realize the name of the designer of the bauble hat. So I have discovered that not only is Donna Smith the designer of the bauble hat, but she has released the bauble cowl and mitts pattern, and so I'm going to be casting that on here pretty soon, and I'm using this Spud and Chloe sweater yarn that I picked up at my local knit shop, which is Colorful Yarns in Centennial, Colorado, if you're in the area. So I wound this yarn up, the last week of December, and I still haven't started that cowl. And I want to, and so expect it to be coming up pretty soon. I want to get a little bit further in my twilling gait before I start it, just simply because I feel like the twilling gait is languishing a little bit, and I know that I'm going to be really involved in this and very keen to not put this down once I start it, and so I'm trying to get further in my twilling gait. I realized that the twilling gait is supposed to be my February sweater, and February doesn't even start until tomorrow, and I still have 28 days of it, but I also know that I will stall out on sweater knitting eventually, and it'll probably happen come June, when the weather really starts to get warm, June, July, August, and so it would be great for me to be ahead of the game, so that if I do take a whole month or even 2 during the summer and not knit any sweaters, I won't fall too far behind. That has been the thing that has caused me to not manage to get through my 12 sweaters any of the years that I've attempted it, and this is the 5th year that I've attempted it. I always start out the year really strong, and then when it gets to be, in Southern California, when it would get to be May, late April, May, and it started to get really warm, I I fell out of desire to knit any kind of a sweater thing because it was just too hot. And then June, July, August would get super duper hot, and it wouldn't start really cooling down until late October, early November, and then by that time, there's too much time has passed. So I'm really hoping to have a better track record with it this year, because it shouldn't get as hot, and it shouldn't get as hot as soon, and it shouldn't last for as long here in Colorado. But I also know that, they do get up to 95, and sometimes even hotter here in the summer months, the heavy summer months, August and whatnot. So I need to be prepared for a lowering of my desire to knit sweaters during those months, and so that is why I'm trying to focus on the twilling gate. Plus I have some other sweaters that I really want to get started soon, and I don't want the twilling gate to languish, as I said, any more than it is. Even if I could knit another sweater at the beginning of February and make the twilling gate my March sweater, I'm afraid that because it is just very simple and knit out of yarn that isn't the most luxurious, I'm afraid that if I take a break from it, then it'll end up sitting forever and ever and ever, and I don't want it to do that. I want to get to it, so I want to just knock it out. So let's talk about the other two sweaters that I'm itching to get started on. One is for a knit-along, Katie from the Inside Number 23 podcast, in her Ravelry group in her podcast group on Ravelry, she is having an Andy Saddalong, which is a knit-along for the patterns that are designed by Andy Satterlund. And so I was not going to knit. I wasn't going to be a part of it because Andy's patterns are kind of have a very vintage feel, and so there's a lot of cropped sweaters that are meant to be worn with dresses. And I've not really been one to wear cropped sweaters or wear a lot of dresses. However, I do have a dress in my closet that has just been sitting there, and I would like to do that, to wear more like that. I graduate in less than a year. I graduate by the end of this year, and I'm going to be working in an office because I'm an accounting major, and so I feel like it'd be good to have more skirts and professional wear with, a nice cropped sweater. So, plus it helps that that I have some sweater quantities of yarn that aren't quite enough quantity for a full-length, body, full sleeves sweater, and so they just sit. And as I said, I've been trying to work through old stash, and so I have this stash of yarn that I love this color, love this yarn, but I've never started anything with it because I didn't have enough to make a full sweater. However, it is exactly enough to make an Andy Satterling sweater. So the yarn in question is this gorgeous Tosh DK in the saffron colorway, and it is just this beautiful burnt orange. And it is different. It's a different shade of burnt orange than my Rustique sweater, which is more red leaning, and this is definitely more brown leaning. But I love this colorway. And I only have 5 skeins of it, which is 1,125 yards, which really, as I said, is not enough for me to make a full sweater. But the VN sweater by Andy Satterlund calls for this exact amount of yardage. So that is what I'm going to do. I'm going to make that out of this, and I'm really excited about it. The other sweater that I'm planning on starting here pretty soon is a personal knit-along that I'm having with some of the ladies at my knit shop. When I was wearing my Rustique, I was raving about how awesome it was that it fit so well, and that how much of my yarn I have set aside because I've been so concerned about making a sweater that fits right. And is flattering. And so one of the ladies at Knit Night goes, well, have you ever knit any Amy Herzog patterns? And I said, I haven't knit any Amy Herzog patterns, but I've wanted to. If you're not familiar with Amy Herzog, she has like taken it upon herself to teach knitters how to make sure that they knit sweaters that fit their body type, and their measurements. And she even has a website called Custom Fit that takes your measurements, and it's detailed measurements, is more than just the bust size. Takes your measurements, and it takes your gauge measurements as well, and it takes a pattern that you already like, that she's designed, and it adjusts it so that it fits your gauge and your size. And I haven't done a whole lot of detailed research on it, but as far as I understand, it makes adjustments for your size. Like it adjusts the shaping, and it adjusts the stitch count and whatnot for your size and your gauge. And you obviously pay a little bit more for the pattern. She has, the one that I'm doing, I think is on Ravelry, and you can get it just a basic, like an everyday sweater pattern, I think for $7. And you can get the adjusted version from Custom Fit for like $12 or $13. And honestly, I think it is totally worth it to spend the extra money to get the Custom Fit sweater, assuming that it's going to fit you better. Because, gosh darn it, isn't it like the most frustrating thing when you knit a sweater that you're super duper excited about, and when you get done with it, it doesn't fit right, or it isn't flattering to your body type? And I'm not a fashion person in any way, so I cannot just look at something and go, oh yeah, well, that's going to look great for my body type. I have to kind of try it on, and then look at it and see, well, no, you know what, this does not work for me. Only with hand knit sweaters, you can't try them on until you've knit them. So anyway, I have gone through and looked at her stuff, and the pattern that I have picked is Cristi-Lael, and I'll post a picture here, and I'm really super duper excited about it. It's fairly simple, but it does have a little bit of texture to it. And the reason why I picked a pattern that was fairly simple is because the yarn that I want to knit it out of is a, well, it's technically a variegated, but it's not like wildly variegated. It is also Madeline Tosh, this time Tosh Vintage, and it is in the Spectrum colorway, which is my favorite colorway of all time. Let me give you a close-up. No, my close-up isn't working very well. It's not bringing up the colors. I'll post a picture of my stash page. But it goes through, it's like purple and blue, just like vibrant purples and blues and some greens. There's a little bit of pink in there and a little bit of orange. And it's amazing. And I have a whole sweater squad. I have enough. This wasn't one of those ones where I cut costs or cut corners by swapping for the yarn, or by trying to get the least amount of yardage possible so that I could save some money. This is one of those times when I said, you know what, I'm going to spend the proper amount of money on a proper sweater quantity, and I bought exactly how much I would need. And so because I did like everything fully with this sweaters quantity, I have been hesitant to knit it up because I don't want to ruin it. So I feel like this Amy Herzog pattern is probably going to be the best to keep from ruining this yarn, because of how much work goes into her patterns and making sure that they fit properly. So there is that. And then that's all for sweaters, but I also, as I said, have been trying to learn new techniques. I attempted the 9-inch circulars, which were a fail. I did Fish Lips Kiss Heel, which was not a fail, which was a total win. And one of the other techniques that I've been really keen on trying lately is brioche. I have seen some amazing brioche patterns and projects, and it's just something that I've never attempted, and so I want to put an end to that lack of knowledge on my end. And so I've picked out a very simple simple for brioche, hat that I thought might work for me, and that is the Liguria hat by Katrin Schubert. And I think that I'm going to knit that out of this Mal Rios. I have it in ivy, which is what I use to make my cousin's hat and mitts for Christmas, and then I also have it in this apple green, and I think that those are a good contrast for brioche, and I'm excited about that, so look for that here pretty soon. And then I've wanted to, and then I have made a couple of shawls in the past, but I've never considered myself much of a shawl knitter, mostly because I didn't really have any reason to wear them. However, as I said, it gets cold here, and my neck gets cold, and so I'll wear like a jacket, but my neck is cold, and I'm like, you know what, I could really do with a shawl right now, or a cowl, or something. So I've been more interested in knitting shawls, and I had recently heard of a mystery shawl cowl called the Snow Melt Mystery Cowl by Helen Stewart, which a lot of podcasters are talking about, and sounds really interesting, but you need 3 different skeins of fingering weight yarn, and as I've discussed recently, most of my yarn is self-striping sock yarn, so it's not really appropriate for a shawl. I do have this skein of Tosh Twist Light in the Willy Wonka purple colorway that I was like, oh well, that would be great, but I would have to buy 2 skeins of tonal yarn to pair with it, and I don't really have it in my budget right now to do that, especially because the cowl starts on Thursday. So I was looking through my stash, and I have some DK weight yarn that would make a great shawl together, and so I started looking through patterns, and I'm kind of coming into an issue, mostly because of the yardage that I have, and so this is where I'm kind of asking for your guys' help and suggestions. I have these 3 skeins that I would love to put together in a DK weight shawl. They're all Tosh. This is Tosh DK in the Napoli. This is what I used for my sweater. And like I said, I have about 150 yards of this. This is DK Twist in Cosmic Silver, which is a gray with like rainbow speckles. And then this is Long Rider DK in Ceremony, which is kind of an indigo, a deep blue. It really matches the darker speckles here. And then there's orange speckles in here, which coordinate very nicely with this. So I think that this would be a great 3-color shawl. But I'm having a hard time finding a pattern. And this is where I would like any help if anybody has any suggestions. I like the ones where there's like stripes of color and there may be different stitches involved. I did look at the Lempi by Susanna Winter, which is a nice enough shawl, but it's not really calling to me. After I looked through all the DK, and I was looking for shawls out of DK that used 3 colors. I, of course, will look some more, and maybe a better thing to do instead of looking for a shawl that's designed for 3 colors is to look for one that maybe is designed for 2 that I can adapt, or one that's even designed to be solid that I can also adapt. But I also looked at sport weight shawls, knowing that my shawl would be slightly bigger. And I found the Play with Stitches by Odd Burgo, which would probably be lovely, but I'm a little bit short. Each of these full skeins are only 225 yards, so I'm really, that's the biggest problem, is that I'm limited by how much yardage I have. I only have a maximum amount of 225 yards in each colorway, and then I only have 150 in the Napoli. So it really has to be, if I was looking for a shawl that was 800 yards, I could find a plethora of ones, but I only have about 550 yards, so I really have to be careful. I'm not opposed of course, to picking up one more skein. Obviously, I can't get it in the Napoli because it doesn't seem like it's being sold anymore. But I could get the ceremony or the cosmic silver. So if you have one that has like a large section, where it needs 400 yards of a single skein or a single color, and then uses the other two colors as accents, let me know. Because I figure I don't have a lot of experience with knitting shawls. I don't know a lot about the shawl patterns that are out there. Some of you who are primarily shawl knitters will probably have a lot more information. And remember, this is DK weight, so a fingering weight shawl isn't going to work for me. Because I probably could find a lot of shawls in fingering weight if these were sock weight yarns, but they're not. So yeah, so those are things that I want to knit here in the near future, so expect those. So now we can get into the yarn that I picked up. As I said, I'm trying to support indie dyers, and so I've been trying to take my meager yarn budget each month and buy indie dyers and not buy big name brand yarns. I obviously fail at that sometimes. I'm a big sucker for Madeline Tosh, as I've said, and I know that that's really a larger dyeing company, but I do really like their yarns. So anyway, an indie dyer that I had never tried before but have seen such beautiful yarn come out of her shop is Lolo Did It. And I'm also, not only am I a sucker for pretty yarns, but I am also a sucker for collections and themes. And the yarn hoarder, Amber, the yarn hoarder, on her podcast, she talked about, I think it was her Christmas socks. She made a pair of Christmas socks for herself, her husband, and her two kids. Her Christmas socks that she made for herself were knit out of Lolo Did It in Hippo for Christmas, which is one of my favorite Christmas songs. I know a lot of people don't like it because it's not really festive and it can be kind of annoying. It's like the Chipmunks Christmas song. It's okay to listen to once every once in a while, but it can kind of get on your nerves. But I happen to really like those fun Christmas songs, and so give me a hippo for Christmas, give me the Christmas donkey, give me I'm Getting Nothing for Christmas. So anyway, when I saw Amber's socks on the Yarn Hoarders podcast, and I was so impressed with the Hippo for Christmas colorway, I said, you know what, I need to probably get that if I can still get my hands on it. And then she announced in her most recent podcast, and Lolo Did It announced it on her Instagram and newsletter that Lolo was going to do a hippos for several holidays this year and have it be a whole theme, a whole collection. I fell in love and decided, you know what, I want to be a part of that. So I went ahead and I got a skein of hippos for Christmas, which is it's a tonal gray and white base. Like so it's a variegated gray and white base with these great green and red speckles, and it knits up beautifully, guys. If you haven't seen, check out Amber's socks. The Yarn Hoarder podcast. I'll link to her podcast. So adorable. And then I also got a skein of her Hippos for Valentine's, which is her second in the line of skeins or holidays that she's coloring this year. And this one I love even more because this one it's a solid gray, whereas this one, it goes from gray to white. This one is all gray with some slight tonal qualities to it, and then it has this great purple and pink. I'm not generally a pink fan, but I do like it in this skein. And then there's also some red here, of course, because you can't have Valentine's Day without red. So not only is Lolo doing these great holidays, but she's also having a knit along for this colorway for this month, or for February. I think they have to be done by March 31st. And she's doing like some surprises for some free skeins, which I'm excited about. But I'm just more excited about having these. And I've already picked out the pattern. I'm gonna make these. I was gonna do just vanilla socks, but I wanted to kind of spruce it up a little bit. So I'm gonna do the Speckled Space socks by Amanda Stevens, which you probably saw if you watch the Cherry Pearls podcast or Pin Feathers and Pearls. Both those podcasters were doing a knit along at the end of last year for, I think it was space socks. I think it was socks, but it was about space, and a lot of people made the Speckled Space socks, and I just love the pattern. I'll post a picture. But yeah, that's what I'm gonna do with this skein, and I'm super duper excited about it. This is in the everyday sock base, which is a very reasonably priced base, and I can already tell by looking at it that I'm going to like the way this knits up. I couldn't get the everyday sock in the Hippos for Christmas. I ended up having to get Lolo's favorite, which is an 80-10-10 MCN, 80% merino, 10% cashmere, and 10% nylon, and it feels like heaven. And I don't generally like MCN for my socks. I do have socks that are knit out of MCN, but I find that it doesn't they don't last quite as long. So I might save this for maybe like a hat and gloves, or maybe even for a shawl, because it would feel really nice, right here. But yeah, there's that, and then I will definitely be budgeting in to be able to get the next holidays. I know that Lolo has announced that she will do St. Patrick's Day as the next holiday, and you know that's going to look awesome because it's going to be gray and green, and dude. I also really quickly want to let you know that I got my my next Desert Vista Dye Works skein. These are ones that I ordered quite a while back, but it takes a while for them to be dyed, and which is totally fine. And so I ordered this quite a while ago, and it's now finally come. It just came yesterday, I believe. This one I got not out of the Viso base like I've gotten in the past, but this is actually the ZN base, which is their sparkly base. So it has 75% superwash merino, 20% nylon, and 5% stellina. So I'll post a picture here of it close up. It's a very pretty colorway, and I want to clarify this next statement by saying that I do really like this colorway, and I think it is very beautiful. It is a 3-color striper, so it's different than the skeins that I've shown you in the past, where it only has 3 colors, but I love 3-color stripers. But as I said, I do really like this colorway. I think it's very pretty. But it is, well, it's quite different than what the photo they had on their website when I ordered it. This darkest blue is a lot lighter than what I saw on the website. And I even went back and checked to make sure, because I was like, did I just remember it differently? I have this mini, just kind of show you. The blue on the picture on the website was a lot closer to this darker color, and then the second shade of blue was more like what's the darkest color in this skein, and then it was gray or silver. So in looking at it, it looks like it's got that medium blue, and then a really light baby blue, and then the gray or silver. Which, as I said, is going to be fine, and it's going to make beautiful socks. And I love the fact that I got the sparkly base for this, because it's the colorway is called Icebreakers, and the sparkly base kind of is reminiscent of ice or snow. So I think it's appropriate for this colorway. So yeah, that is the other thing that I got this week. And guys, that's all that I have. I have probably talked entirely too long, and my battery has died like 3 or 4 times, and it's lunchtime, and I'm hungry, and my battery's going to die any minute, and I don't want to wait for it to charge again. I want to eat. So I'm going to go ahead and end this now. I've enjoyed talking with you this week. I hope you guys have a wonderful rest of your week. I hope it's filled with great knitting and great fun, and I will talk to you guys next week. Take care. Bye-bye.